What's up, peeps? You know, it's interesting. I've had a number of people reach out to me since my post yesterday or the other day, whenever it was, about the opportunity I've received to go to Hong Kong to do a workshop retreat for companies like Facebook, Uber, and we're also talking with a couple other entities there as well. People are like, how did you get that? How did that happen? Everyone's looking to get dream clients like this on such a large scale. Like Facebook and Uber, it doesn't really get much bigger than that in the corporate training, I guess, consulting industry. And to be honest, there's only one reply I told people. I said, just put out good content. For people out there that are having blogs or YouTube channels or doing these videos or whatever you're doing, if you're just continually putting out good quality content, you're going to attract people that want to get more of that in a different medium. Like I kind of shared in the video previously with my Natalie that was here when she flew here from Hong Kong to put together this curriculum we're working on. The reason why she flew from Hong Kong to Korea to work together, basically, and then to fly me to Hong Kong next month is because the content I was putting out was A, consistent, B, high quality, like getting quality guests to come on my podcast, which I'm super thankful for, but that takes a lot of work to, I guess, facilitate those relationships and cultivate those interactions with people of high esteem that have something very worth sharing. And then B, being open and available to opportunities. So it's really those three things. A, put out good content. B, be consistent with it. And 3, be available, an opportunity to accept invitations to take advantage of people who do want to work with you. And that's really the 3-step formula. And I know that it might come across as being kind of like, I don't want to say that, like condescending about it, but that's really all it is. It's just about putting in the work. There's no secret sauce. There's no like hack of how to get around the fact that you need to just put in a lot of work. Like 57 episodes I put in, and now finally starting to get some of the fruits to that that labor. Like you plant the seed, harvest it, it'll grow. And so often there's like that parable that people quit right before the result happens, right? Like you're so close, like that next, if you're digging for gold, that next shovel that you put in, that'll hit it, and people just drop the shovel right before it, is a good analogy. So I think that this is kind of hopefully motivation for people. Like if you have been working on whatever you're working on, just work harder or work smarter and cultivate relationship with people that might be able to help you fast forward through. But there's no real fast forwarding, like there's really not. And a lot of it also comes down to kind of like pure luck or divine intervention, if you believe in that. Like if I just look at my industry of podcast hosts, most podcasts don't have more than 10 episodes. Like if you look at iTunes, like the stats of what's the average amount of episodes posted on iTunes platform for podcasts, it's like under 10%. Or 10 episodes, not 10%. Most new podcasters, they don't even get to over 10 episodes. And then what happens once you get over 10? Then the industry, the marketplace gets a lot smaller because there's a few people that kind of take up the majority of this space, but that's because the majority of people don't even put in the work to get into the marketplace. So I think this is a good metaphor. There's so many people try something for maybe a month, 2 months, whatever, and then they're like, oh, well, this isn't working, and then they quit. You never gave it a chance to work. You know what I mean? Like I started this not to try and make a business out of it or make money from it at all. My only reason to do it was to solve my own problem. And my problem was that I felt a lack of quality conversations that I was having living abroad, because I live in a place where most people don't even speak my language. So I've got a very big network of very interesting and influential people that are really making great things happen in the world. And I said, well, what if I create a platform where I can kind of have an excuse to reach out and talk to them? that's basically what it was. It was like, how can I set something up where I have an excuse to just have long form quality conversations with people that I admire, basically. And then I've always wanted to get into the podcasting world, but I'm not really a tech guy, so I learned how to do it, studied on the different platforms and so on, how to get it set up, and then started reaching out to people, and it was that simple. And here I am a few months later with almost 10,000 subscriber downloads on iTunes, and getting offers to go and work with Facebook and Uber, and who knows what else will come from that. So I hope that this is just motivation for people to follow through. You know, if you have an idea, give it 1 year, give it 2 years. Don't just quit after a couple weeks, couple months. And the other thing I would say is that putting out consistently, you know, like with so much noise on social media, it's hard to pay attention who's who, you know, like I've got almost 5,000 friends on Facebook. For example, like I can't even remember a lot of the names that just pop up. Like I'll see like the profile pictures, but I won't remember the name. So if I see someone who posts something, it'd be hard for me to go back and find that post because I can't remember the name. But if you're constantly putting out the same message, and for me it's like the podcast content, then people are like, oh, Quinton's podcast, right? So you won't, like, there's another friend of mine who was great at branding, Sean Vossler, and his whole name was like Sean the WordPress guy. Like that's what his name was on Facebook forever. And whenever I thought about WordPress, I would think of him. So whatever your niche is or whatever your business is, like my friend Aaron Rashkin, his email says Aaron the CBD guy, because the two of us, we sell CBD oil together. So that's just another kind of thing to kind of become branded. And how do you become branded? You become branded by continuously putting out content in that niche. And that's what I've tried to do. And my friend Brian Swan, that lives in Bali, he said something really interesting when I was there. He said, you know, it's not about, a lot of people on social media, they look at the engagement, right? Like how many comments are they getting? How many likes? How many subscribers are they getting? He said, it's not about that. It's like who's actually consuming your content. And he told me a story how there's a guy who, he had no idea who this guy was, but apparently he was always watching his videos, but never commenting, never subscribing, never liking or anything like that. But then one day he just messaged Brian and he's like, hey man, I'm ready to become a client. I want to work with you. And Brian's like, oh, cool. Like, how did we connect? And he's like, well, I've been watching your stuff for years. And Brian's like, really? He's like, I don't recognize your name. I've never seen you comment or you know, share any of my posts or anything like that. And he's like, well, doesn't mean I wasn't watching. And I think that's the key. Like, people are always watching. I got a message just the other day from a friend here in Busan that basically just said, hey, I've been paying attention and I've been tuning into what you're doing. I just want to say, like, I'm impressed and good for you for pursuing this project. And he was talking about my podcast and stuff. And I've never seen him comment, like, or do anything regarding the content, but he's watching, right? So I think whatever you're producing, people are watching. They might not be commenting, subscribing, liking, all that stuff, but people are taking notice. And when the time comes for them to engage in whatever you're offering, it'll happen organically, as long as you keep putting out the content that they're tuning into. I just did an incredible interview with one of my first actual like mindset personal development mentors, this guy named John Lavinia. You got to listen to this podcast. Like I probably said about 10 words the whole podcast. I introduced him and then that was it. He was just like boom, like off to the races, because the guy is just like operating on such a high level of cognition, and he's just such a good speaker. And he basically talked for an hour straight. And one of the things I shared at the end, I said, you know, John, like, you made such a huge difference in my life. Like, I found John when I was 27, like, you know, so over a decade ago. And I learned more from John than I did from any university professor probably almost anyone else in my life. Like he made a huge impact in my development as a young man, and also becoming a just learning about personal development, learning about business, and learning about leadership mostly. Like he's got a book called Integrity is Everything, and it's basically a leadership book. And I told him, I said, John, you probably don't know this, but I remember those coaching calls that you would host and that I would be on, and I remember like all these phrases like it was yesterday, and it really impacted my trajectory in my life, because it did. And I just saw his face, like when he heard that, he was kind of like surprised and not, it just made a big impact on him, because I think as content producers and creators, you don't really get feedback a lot of the time, mostly unless it's negative. Like these YouTube trolls are freaking vicious. And it's funny because John was just like, I had no idea that what I was saying was really resonating on such a high level, because he just wasn't getting that feedback. It was never like I really messaged John and said, hey man, like I really, which I probably should have. But this is back before social media was even a thing. Like he was doing these calls, he was doing these calls before YouTube. Like this is before podcasting was even really a thing. It would be teleconferences calls, so I would have to dial in on my phone, press like a special key number to get logged into this telecall, right? And I just told him that. I said, these calls made such a big impact in my life. But unfortunately nowadays, the only time we usually get feedback is through like YouTube trolls. And it's really funny because I was listening to Joe Rogan and Kevin Hart's new podcast that just came out, and Joe was like, you think Michael Jordan ever left comments on YouTube? Like, no. Like people who are successful and people who are making things happen in their life, like they're too busy to leave comments. You know what I mean? Or hate, to be like negative. So that's what I got for you guys today. If you're a content creator, just keep crushing that content, keep putting it out. You never know what doors will open. And it's not about the quantity of people who are following you. It's about the quality of people who are following you. It just takes that one person to, for example, in my situation, invite me to go to Hong Kong to work with their clients, Facebook and Uber. So keep hustling. Hopefully this is some motivation for you to continue on your path, and keep tuning in. Just keep showing up. That's the trick. That's the secret. Keep doing it.